Okay, let's just dive right into this. If you're gearing up for the IELTS exam, you already know the deal. Vocabulary is absolutely the mountain you have to climb. But what if I told you that staring at endless, boring alphabetical lists of words until your eyes literally blur is actually the worst way to go about it? Seriously, it's a trap. Today, we're turning a seriously daunting challenge into a strategic masterclass. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to decode a very specific 500-word IELTS vocabulary pack, and we're turning it into your ultimate strategy playbook. So on the surface, this 500 must-know IELTS vocabulary pack might just look like, well, another heavy, dense dictionary. But that is exactly what we want to avoid today. We're totally reframing this source material. Think of it less like a list you have to painfully memorize and much more like a highly organized, strategic toolkit that is specifically designed to systematically level up your English. Every single thing in here has a purpose. Let's break down exactly how it's built. All right, here is our playbook agenda for the explainer. We'll start with the 500-word framework, then move to core parts of speech, hit up the academic word list, dive into topic-specific vocabulary, and finally wrap up with the vocabulary multiplier. Kicking things off with Section 1, the 500-word framework. Listen, understanding the actual architecture of this list is step number 1. You can't just start at the letter A and blindly hope you make it to Z before test day. It doesn't work like that. You need to know exactly how this pie is sliced so you can plan your study time. And out of the 500 words, we have a perfectly balanced study diet here. The designers deliberately gave us 100 verbs, 100 adjectives, 100 nouns, and 50 adverbs. And then the remaining 150 words are totally dedicated to the academic word list and specific situational topics. It's balanced on purpose, right? It ensures you aren't just learning what to call things, nouns, but actually how to describe them and how they move. Moving right along to Section 2, core parts of speech. So why does this grammatical breakdown matter so much? Well, separating words by their function builds your essential grammatical flexibility. Like, if you only know nouns, your sentences are just going to sit there. They won't move. You have to know how the pieces fit together. And that brings us to a huge number, 350. Out of the 500 total words in this pack, a massive 350 are dedicated solely to these core building blocks. We're talking verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. This right here is your foundation. Without mastering these 350 words, you literally cannot construct the varied, complex sentences that the IELTS examiners are actively hunting for. Verbs are, without a doubt, the engines of your sentences. Think about the word accelerate. The pack defines it as increase in speed or rate. Using a dynamic, high-scoring action word like accelerate instead of just throwing in speed up, that immediately signals to the grader that you have a firm, confident grasp of academic English. It's a total game changer. Next up, we have our adjectives. These add precision and color to those engines. Take a word like ambiguous. Instead of just writing that a situation is unclear, describing it as ambiguous, which means having more than one possible meaning, man, that instantly elevates the precision of your writing. It proves to the examiner you can handle nuance, and that is absolutely vital for pushing into those higher band scores. Now for Section 3, the academic word list. Okay, so if the core parts of speech are your foundation, the academic word list, or the AWL, is basically your secret weapon. This section is where you get the formal tools you need to tackle those notoriously brutal IELTS reading passages and write highly formal Task 2 essays. The AWL targets high-level abstract terminology. Think about words like abstract, meaning existing in thought or as an idea, or the word concept. These are words that pop up constantly in university-level texts, but let's be real, you're rarely going to hear them casually chatting in a coffee shop. But you absolutely must know them to crush an academic test. Let's pull one specific, super important example straight from the AWL section, evidence. The pack defines it perfectly as facts indicating a belief is true. Now think about your IELTS writing task 2. You're constantly being asked to support your claims and justify your opinions, right? Kneeling formal terms like evidence is exactly how you build those convincing, logical, formal arguments that score the big points. Moving right into Section 4, topic-specific vocabulary. You know the IELTS exam loves to pull reading passages, listening exercises, and essay prompts from very specific recurring themes. Memorizing general words just isn't going to cut it here. Thematic lists are crucial so you don't get caught totally off guard on test day. Contrasting the science vocabulary with the economy section shows off the incredible breadth of contextual vocabulary this pack provides. You aren't just learning random terms in a vacuum, you're actually learning the specialized language of distinct fields. So, what does this targeted ammunition actually look like? Well, in science, you're picking up words like biodiversity and emissions. For society, we've got demographics and ideology. In health, it's pandemic and immunity. And in economy, inflation and recession. If you get handed a speaking or writing task about environmental protection, immediately dropping words like biodiversity or emissions is going to dramatically boost your lexical resource score. It just proves you've got that domain-specific knowledge locked down. Finally, we've reached Section 5, the vocabulary multiplier. Honestly, this is where things get really exciting. This is the absolute most powerful strategic feature of the entire 500-word pack. Why? Because it secretly teaches you way more than just the base words listed at the top. The key here is the number 1500. Yep, thanks to the clever flashcard design of the source material, learning these 500 core words actually means you're mastering upwards of 1500 words. I know it sounds a bit like magic, but it's really just incredibly efficient design. Let me show you exactly how this multiplier works. Let's jump back to the word ambiguous. Below the main definition, you don't just get the word itself, you get its synonyms, which are marked SYN. So here we get vague and equivocal. And right below that, you get an antonym, marked ANT, which is clear. By studying these synonyms and antonyms alongside the main word, every single entry acts as a massive multiplier for your active vocabulary. You set out to learn just one word, but you actually walk away with 4. How cool is that? Now watch how this builds when we apply it to our topic lists. Take the entry for assimilation from the society section. By learning its synonym, integration, and its antonym, exclusion, right alongside it, you're building an immediate semantic web. You aren't just memorizing isolated terms anymore. You're really understanding how these words relate to each other. And honestly, this is exactly the skill you need to paraphrase effectively in the IELTS reading and listening sections. Okay, to make sure you can actually execute this strategy, let's lay out a super concrete step-by-step study plan based entirely on this pack's layout. Step 1, learn the core definition of the word. Step 2, memorize the provided synonyms so you can paraphrase seamlessly. Step 3, contrast that with the antonyms so you understand the exact opposite meaning. And Step 4, apply this entire word family to the specific IELTS themes when you're doing your practice essays. And that right there brings us to the core takeaway of today's explainer. It's not about reading a dictionary, it's about executing a playbook. Achieving IELTS success simply does not come from brute force memorization. No way. It comes from the strategic application of structured knowledge. By using the framework, really understanding the parts of speech, and leaning heavily into that vocabulary multiplier, you're studying smarter, not just harder. So I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on before your next study session. Looking at the 4 thematic topics we went over today, science, society, health, and economy, which area is your absolute weakest link? I want you to identify that gap right now. Then, take this 500-word playbook approach and use it to turn that weakness into your biggest scoring strength. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy studying.